Okay. Okay, here we are. Here we are. We actually, this is a rare occurrence where we're going to be picking up in the middle of the paragraph here. The only reason is because it is a new paragraph in my Sefer. I have I think it's the new Art Scroll, relatively new Art Scroll version, the Jaffa edition. Highly recommend it. Happens to be in the move. I've kind of lost it, and I don't know where this box is, so I took the Jaffa edition one from Kushner. This belongs to the library. I have permission. I was told I could take everything but a Sefer Torah. That's what the associate principal told me like a year or two ago. Because I used to ask every single time I wanted to borrow a Sefer. It's like, you can take it. Don't worry. Just take it. Just take it. Just don't take a Torah. He's like, those are expensive. Just to recap, we're discussing the concept of tahara, and within the concept of tahara, which is not necessarily, it's not physical purity, but it's purity of one's intentions, one's kavana. And he right now is talking about lo lishma. The concept of serve Hashem lo lishma is something we're very familiar with, right? You want to serve Hashem lishma, don't serve Hashem lo lishma. You're probably familiar with the Gemara, Shemitosha lo lishma, ba lishma. If you serve, you should serve Hashem, better to serve him lo lishma, because if you serve him lo lishma, so we'll come to serve him lishma. And so the Ramchal really goes in depth in this concept of lo lishma, and he broke it down to three different types and categories of lo lishma. And the first one is something that's so bad that it's better, he says, to not even do the mitzvah. And it's not him, meaning he's quotes Mamare Chazal in saying that. And that's where a person is only doing it. The only reason they're doing it is for the sake of kavod and for maybe money, for whatever it is. That's all. That's the only reason why you are doing the mitzvah. And it's better not to do it than to do it just for the sake of kavod. So that's the lowest level. The next level, second, I guess the middle level, let's say, of lo lishma, is where a person is doing the mitzvah for the sake of the reward, for schar, for olam haba, let's say. Right? You know, Hashem's gonna be good to you if you're good to Hashem. So that the Ramchal says is where the Gemara says, "Mitol lo lishma, ba lishma." It's better to do it lo lishma, because if you do it lo lishma, you'll come to lishma. So why is it's good to do it lo lishma? It's referring to this category where you're not doing it for kavod, you're doing it because you want some olam haba, and that's okay. It's not great, obviously, as it's not the ideal, but it's better to serve Hashem and do the mitzvah if your intent is to do it for the reward. And then he says, and this is where we kind of left off, where this is the I guess the most noble lo lishma, is where you serve Hashem partly lishma and partly lo lishma. Within each mitzvah that you perform, it doesn't have to be each mitzvah. It could be differences, but typically within a mitzvah that you perform, you could be doing it for Hashem's sake, but within there could be ulterior motives. And I think I gave an example last week. When it came to, let's say you're going to give tzedakah, and you decide, you give tzedakah at shul, and you're part of you is thinking like, oh, the rabbi or my religious friend is going to see me drop a $5 bill into the tzedakah box. So even though you're doing it and you want to give tzedakah, you want to do it for the right reasons, but there's a taroes, there's an element there of doing it for the wrong reasons. And he continues, we're over here, as I said, in the middle of this paragraph. He says, says sometimes even if you're not purely doing it for the praise you're going to get, right? Of course, there are plenty of times where a person could do a mitzvah and they're praised for how they performed it, right? Well, oh, this person is such a bal chesed. They opened their homes, whatever it may be, right? So bismach libo ala shevach yarbe ledaktik yoser. And because of the fact that you're going to be praised for what you're doing, you're going to make sure to do it even better, right? It reminded me, when I read this, when I was preparing, it reminded me of a very perplexing midrash that says that it brings three different stories. And one of them is when it came to Reuven in the Yosef story, Reuven's plan was to get Yosef, I believe it was Reuven, was to have him thrown into the pit so that he could come back later to save him. That was Reuven's plan. And so by the time Reuven came back, so that's when he found out that he was taken out, Yosef was taken out of the pit, and Yosef was sold, and Reuven mamish like tore Kriya. So the Midrash says that had Reuven known that it would be written about him that he was going to do this plan in the Torah, he would have came down with like a full entourage and made a much bigger deal out of it. And it brings this, the same Midrash discusses Aaron when it came to the fact that Moshe was chosen the leader over his older brother, Aaron. And Aaron, he accepted that, believed Shalim, and says that had Aaron known that it would have been written in the Torah, he would have brought like a marching band to greet Moshe. And the question on the Midrash is this, it seems like it's this exact point that he's saying here. Like, wait, so you're telling me that Aaron and Reuven, like these big tzaddikim, there's one other person, I forgot the other, I apologize, I forgot the other person involved in the Midrash. If anyone knows, let me know. But I wasn't planning on saying that, just came to my mind. But the question on the Midrash is this point, like, wait, so you're telling me they didn't really do it totally lishma? Because if they knew it was written down, if they knew like, oh, they're going to be praised for this, then they would have done it even better. That's what the Ramchal is saying you shouldn't do, what he's about to say right now. So I heard a beautiful answer to this question that said that there's plenty of times in life where a person makes a choice to do something, but they're not entirely certain that what they're doing is correct. And so, meaning maybe Aaron felt maybe I should be the leader, or maybe Reuven said, I don't know, maybe there's another plan. Maybe I should have spoken to my brothers. Like whatever it may be, they felt confident enough to do this, but not entirely confident. And so the fact that they knew the Torah, when the Midrash says, oh, if they knew the Torah, it was written in the Torah, that what they did was good, they'd come with this whole big, make a much bigger deal out of it. It meant that the fact that Hashem is giving his seal of approval, then they would have done it with much more, much greater emphasis and much greater, strength, like going forward for what their plan was, knowing that it was officially the right thing in the eyes of Hashem. And sometimes we perform things just unsure of what the Ratzon Hashem is. Either way, sorry to get us a little sidetracked, but it's relevant over here, where he says that there are times where a person doesn't necessarily, they're not doing the mitzvah for the sake of being praised, but once they know that they're being praised for what they do, so then they're going to be more meticulous about this mitzvah going forward, right? So let's use tzedakah as example. So a person gives a lot of money and does it altruistically, selflessly, just wants to do the right thing, and he knows like people are praising him about it, and the organizations he's helping, the CEOs are giving him a call, and now he's going to make sure, I have to make sure to really continue and to make sure that I do everything, give exactly what they expect, right? So he says, he continues, he gives an example of this from the Gemara of Ozar and Daf Yud Cherem and Aleph, from the daughter of Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion, that when she walked in a very modest and refined way. And when she heard that she was praised for her tznius, let's say, in the way she walked, so it testifies about her that she was more precise. She made sure to like really be as humble and sanua as possible in her walk. And this added measure of meticulousness in how she performed her and how she walked, that was because of the fact that she was praised. And he says, he says, he says, meaning this is just the smallest fraction of a lo lishma within a mitzvah, right? You're doing the mitzvah, his daughter, Chanina ben Chayron's daughter, was a very tzanua person. She was walking modestly, and she did it for the sake of Hashem. But once she found out that she was praised for it, she made sure that there was a small element of it that was even more refined because of that praise. And that's what he says, meaning if a person, remember how far along we are in the Sefer, right? We're on a very high madriga, we're on Tahara. And if a person wants their actions and their thoughts and their intention, kavanah, to be 100%, in order for you to reach this madrega, then anything shy of that is automatically a chisaron on a certain level. So it says, even though this is like, it's like bittul barov, like there's such a small fraction that it's considered like you did a very noble mitzvah in a very proper way. I'll call upon him nonetheless. That since there is an element of, let's say, Lola Shema within this mitzvah performance, so it's lacking in a certain sense from pure Tara, from a level of, let's say, perfection. That when it came to the flour that was used in the korbanos that would go on the mizbeach, the flour, they wanted to make sure there wasn't one piece of chaff in this flour, and therefore, when they sifted it to make sure to get it as refined as possible, they used up to 13 sifters to make sure. So they sifted through once, right? Think about straining the noodles or something, right? Like use one strainer, that's it. Right here, they use 13 strainers, one and the second and the third, right? To make sure that there wasn't anything wrong with the flour that would go on the mizbeach. Because this flour then would be entirely pure to go on the mizbeach. Says just as when it came to the flour that was going on the mizbeach has to be entirely pure. Says so too. The exalted altar, the exalted mizbeach, is referring to just our avoda, not the avoda in the Beis Mikdash, but our avoda of Hashem. We have to make sure that it's as refined and really as perfect in terms of our maaseh hamitzvos and our kavanah that we do to make sure that there's not a shemetz of impurity in it whatsoever. He says, "Inneni Omer shemashehu zulat zeh yanidcha legamri." He says, I'm not saying that if it's lacking this, it's going to be rejected by Hashem. Meaning, don't think that if you can't reach this, your mitzvah is worthless. Hashem's going to give a reward. And Hashem's going to judge a maaseh for what it is, right? If it's entirely pure, so it's amazing, perfect. You get the most mitzvah points. But if it's not entirely perfect, right? So an A- ain't so bad, and a B+ isn't terrible. So he says Hashem's going to give you a reward, and for what it is. However, he says, like this is like the equivalent of like, okay, but if you wanna get to Harvard, so the straight A- aren't going to cut it, right? He says, Amnam ala avoda tmima, but if you want pure avoda, if you want the avoda to be tamim, to be complete and perfect, says, I'm speaking to those people who are lovers of Hashem, people who want to serve Hashem on the highest level. That to not call out to Hashem, like to not perform the mitzvos, except when they're mamash shalom, except when they're almost as perfect as possible. That there's no ulterior motive whatsoever, and that when you serve Hashem, when you do the mitzvah, it's just Hashem. So he says that, yeah, if you do a mitzvah and there's some ulterior motive, don't worry, you still get a reward. But he says, the people I'm speaking to now are the people who are the true Ovei Hashem, on the highest level. And those people have to make sure to serve Hashem without any ulterior motive. And as much as you distance yourself from this, right? So the further away you are from serving Hashem Lishma, so the further away, the more deficient your mitzvah observance is, right? And obviously, the more you're able to think about this and have proper kavanah, the more wholesome and complete your mitzvah observance is, right? Something I was going to say. Oh, yes. That I think it's also important to mention, like we've been discussing, that even though these are very hamadregas, certainly beyond my personal avoda, not that I don't want to get here, but certainly it's beyond my personal avoda, we still want to be able to glean from it whatever we can. And I think it's important to recognize that when we discuss the three different levels of mitzvah lo lishma and now discussing what ta'ara is in mitzvah observance, I think it's important to recognize not that every single mitzvah we do. So I think we could all relate to the taroves, right? The one that the best lo lishma of, right? Most of what you're doing is lishma and some of it is lo lishma. I think it's important to notice. I'm sure there are times where we do mitzvah sometimes purely lishma with no ulterior motives whatsoever, right? We've given tzedakah without anyone knowing about it at times. We have definitely done chasadim without ulterior motives. Obviously, we're not perfect. There's some times where we might not even be at that highest level of lo lishma. We might be at a worse level of the lo lishma. But it's important to realize that we're constantly, I think, I myself, certainly, it's like a bilbo. It's like all over the place sometimes. It's not where like, oh, I'm always at this level, lishma, or I'm always at this level, or oh, I've reached Tara. But I think sometimes we do things as lishma as could be, and sometimes it's unfortunately not as lishma. So it continues. There's what David HaMelech said in Tehillim Ayin Gimel Kaf Hey, Mi li b'shamayim b'mcha lo chapatzi va'aretz. Who else do I have in heaven but you, Hashem? And with you, I wish for nothing else on earth. Hey, David HaMelech Kedarko. Darko very much loved Hashem, right? Achash Alti, right? Was he want, right? Shetveis Hashem Kamei Chayai, right? Yamar Kamoken, and David HaMelech says further, Tzrufa imrascha me'od v'avadcha aheva. Tzrufa has to do with like refining metals, making the metal as pure as possible. So he says that the word of Hashem is very refined. And your servant loves it, meaning I, David HaMelech, that your servant love it. That a real avoda, a real service of Hashem has to be as refined as possible. As it says regarding to the Torah itself, Imros Hashem Amaros Tahoros, that basically the words of Hashem are pure, meaning the Torah itself is pure, and like refined silver, clear to the world, purified sevenfold. To explain this, that the fact that the Torah is perfect and the Torah is refined, then our avoda in serving Hashem, has to be like that as well, right? It's not where Hashem is only telling us to be as perfect as could be, but Hashem himself lives by that. And the Torah, right? Torah Hashem Tamimam, Shivas Nefesh, right? The Torah is perfect. And when it comes to us keeping the Torah, we have to do it and live up to that perfection as best we could of that Torah. It says, Umishahu Obe Hashem be'emes, someone who serves Hashem be'emes. Lo yistapik bazeh bambuat fully tratel lekachat kasav ma'or b'sigim v'dilim. If you're really serving Hashem, you don't want some knockoff metal, right? You don't want something that's not refined. The hainu avoda mareves b'pnios lo tovos. You don't want you don't want an avoda of Hashem, something that's where there's deficiencies mixed in, there are blemishes. It should be pure, right? And then it'll be as the Chachamim say in Gemara Shabbos and Samach Gimel and Aleph, Kol Osa Mitzvah K'mamara in Mebasrin Oso Besoros Rogs. If a person performs the mitzvah like Hashem asked them to, so then they're not gonna hear bad news. It's pointed out here that it doesn't say that nothing bad will happen to you. It's an even higher madriga, that you won't even hear of bad things happening to others. Like we often say to people that it should be like besoros tovos. You should have good news in the future. When something bad happens, sometimes you say that. Here it says like im bevasron so besoros ros. You won't hear anything bad. V'chein amru zal. Gemara in the Dharma Samach Beis Amud Aleph says, "Asay dvarim l'shem pa'alam v'daber behem l'shman." That you should fulfill the words of the Torah for the sake of their maker, and you should speak about them for their own sake. Meaning the ratio of this, the first half is referring to the performance of mitzvahs, and the second half, it says you should speak about them. Daber behem lishman is speak about them, meaning learn the Torah, learn them and speak them lishma. V'huma, sorry. And the pursuit of this level is what those people have selected it, like people who have chosen to serve Hashem at this madrega, do so b'leiv shalem, with a full heart. Because if someone is not clinging to Hashem with a perfect love, true love, says serving Hashem is going to be a burden, not going to be as enjoyable. They say, no, I do not. I don't want to say it's not true, because maybe it is true, but I don't think this is. I think this is more like kind of used as a scare tactic, or I don't want to say shtick, but it works here. That like what is Olam Haba? Olam Haba is going to be an empty base medrash. Like there you are with a million svarim, and you have eternity to learn. For some people, it's going to be like Gan Eden. For some people, it'll be Gehenna. Like that's it. It's not Olam Haba. That is the afterlife. It's that room, let's say, and you're just learning. It's a question of whether you're going to love it or hate it based on what you did on this world. So that's what I thought of over here, because he says if a person isn't at a high level where they feel connected to Hashem, then trying to do this and trying to serve Hashem at the highest level feels burdensome. It's not something that people like, right? Just think about some people who are a little, for people who are not so religious, right? And they feel burdened by keeping Shabbos sometimes, keeping kosher, right? And for someone who Hashem is from, it's like, no, this is what makes me Jewish. This is how I feel. This is how I connect to Hashem. I mean, Shabbos, I'd be without Shabbos. It says, Ki yomar mi yuchal lamod bazev, v'nachtem b'nei chomer yeludei isha yefshal lagil zikuf atzir fazeh. He says, that the person who finds this too difficult is going to say, like, who could really endure this? Like, who could live up to this level? Like, we're only human. What do you expect from us? But a person who loves Hashem, a person who is gonna be able to, a person who wants to serve Hashem, person who loves Hashem wholeheartedly is gonna like see this opportunity to be able to continue and serve Hashem and do the mitzvos, to purify himself, to refine himself, and that's what he loves. This is what David Melech says, like, I love it. I love serving Hashem. V'hine be'emes. Let's see. So a little more for the parak. I apologize. We'll go a little faster. Okay. But we'll finish the parak tonight. And this is the litmus test. This is how people, their characters are tested by this criteria to see, to differentiate one from another. Like, how are you in the major leagues of serving Hashem? Someone who knows how to really purify his heart even more. That person who purifies himself even more is going to be more beloved by Hashem. Who are this referring to? This is the earlier generations, who strengthened themselves and succeeded in getting to such a high madrega. These are ha'avos ushar harom asher tiara libam lefanav. This is referring to the avos, the other shepherds. I mean, it could be David Melch was a shepherd, right? There are a number of Rabbi Akiva is a shepherd, right? Famous shepherds. He says they perfected this. They were at such a madrega where they were serving Hashem totally the Shema, and they're extremely connected to Hashem and had that love. Humasha David Masir et Shlomo Beno. This is what David HaMelech warned Shlomo about. Ki kol levavos doresh Hashem chol yetzem hashavos meven. That Hashem searches everyone's hearts. Right? We say this kind of stuff on Yom Kippur. Right? Hashem, those are actions. Hashem, those are thoughts. Right? So Hashem searches our hearts, and Hashem is able to discern, to differentiate, and know our thoughts. The Amr Zochron Levrachan says in Sanhedrin on Kuf Vav Hamadeiz Rachmana Libabai that Hashem desires our heart. Right? That's what Hashem wants. Hashem just wants our heart. Hashem wants our kavanah, basically. It's brought down here, important footnote, that the Ramchal, in a letter, the Ramchal wrote as follows. He says, V'amram zal Rachmana Libabai lo lahakel bo el hachmir me'od me'od. When the Chachamim said that Hashem, like all Hashem wants is our intention, Hashem isn't saying that to be Mekil. Hashem is saying that to be Machmir Me'od Me'od is what he says. What does he mean? Right? Sometimes, like as a parent, I mean, I'm not at this age where my kid is in school taking tests yet, but I do hope to be honest and genuine when I tell my kid, I just care that you try. I care that you put in effort. The result matters less, right? If you get a C, a D, a B, and A, okay, fine. But I care that you try, right? So that's what it means, right? We care about the intent. Hashem wants your intent. Hashem wants you to just try hard. So he says, it's not what it means. He says, it means that after you do the mitzvah and you're doing it on the highest level and you're making sure that you're not messing up a halacha here or there, you're actually performing the mitzvah in its proper way. On top of that, Rahman Ali Babai, Hashem expects your kavanah to be as good as possible, right? So that's what the Ramchal says. That's what it really means. But certainly, either way, Hashem certainly cares about our intention. Our kavanah is certainly something that's very important. Unfortunately, I had pretty bad kavanah during Marv tonight. Right before this, I was like, "Wow, I'm about to give a shiur about kavanah," and I just had really bad kavanah. I was literally thinking about it during Shemona Esrei while I was having bad kavanah, and I'm like, I should probably just focus on this. But then we got back to a little bit of redemption at the end, I think. So he says, "Ki ein dai la'adon baruch hu." So we are over here. I apologize, you guys. Okay. Ki ein dai la'adon baruch hu b'masim levadam shu masei mitzvah. It's not enough that a person just performs acts of mitzvos. That a person's heart is pure, is in the right place. He says when it comes to the organs of our body and the bones and organs of our body, so he says the heart is the king, right? The heart rules them all. If the heart isn't into it, it doesn't make a difference what else is going on, right? If a person is shaking the lulav, but their heart isn't into it whatsoever, the thing about other things, and they don't really care. He says, "Kol ki el asher shama ruach halev l'lechas yelechu." Wherever the heart goes, that's what's going to happen. That's the most important thing. and Mikra Kosev Perishan says explicitly in Mishle and Parakov Gimel Pasuk Kavav, Tana v'ni libchali. Hashem says, my child, give me your heart. That is what I want. I care about your kavanah. I care about your intentions. And as Hashem will continue next week with the next.